You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.
Hello, hello, hello out there in podcast land. You have reached Johnny Has the Keys, where we talk about horror movies and science fiction films and those key elements that lift and elevate those above the average genre fare. I am here with my friend David Horton. He is our co-host, and we would like to thank you for coming back. If you are a returning customer, or should I say visitor, or should I say patron, or should I say audience member, or should I say Marvel cast member? I don't know.
Marvel cast member.
Because soon you will be, because everyone will be.
Everyone will be, yes.
And if you are new to our program, this silliness is something you'll grow accustomed to, and we welcome you as well. David, I am shocked to announce that it is November 1st.
Oh my gosh.
I know. We only have one more episode before we break for Thanksgiving next week.
That's
we're not going to let you know what that is just yet. We're going to concentrate on today's. How have you been, my friend?
I've been well. Yeah, that's crazy to think about. It's been a while. It's been a cool season so far, starting off with the live thing and then everything we've been doing. So it's been cool.
Right.
What did I do this week? I've got a fun thing for you. I ended up watching a little movie by accident because my grandson wanted to watch it with the whole family. So we had to get it and watch it. And I'd never heard of it, really. So I thought I was kind of doubtful, but it was actually really, really good. It's called The Mitchells versus the Machines. It was a Sony picture thing. Came out in this year. Came out in 21. You can get it on Netflix.
Is it just lost in the COVID shuffle or something?
Well, it's an animated one.
Oh, okay.
But it's a really hip animated sci-fi movie. Very much in line with like a Pixar feel to it. Pixar kind of meets DreamWorks. The animation is really kind of goofy. The basic story or the plot is that you have a girl who's getting ready to go off to college. She's always been a geek and a weirdo and always made her own little films and all of this. And her family is very dysfunctional, but traditionally dysfunctional. Dad works all the time and doesn't have time for everybody. Mom is kind of the loving affection influence, and she has a younger brother who looks up to her, kind of thing. So it's a very dysfunctional kind of traditional family. But anyway, there's a robot apocalypse that happens, and they are the only free humans at the end of the robot occupation, and they're trying to save the world, literally. And it's really very hip writing, very cool dialogue, great character animation that you don't pick, but it's called The Mitchells versus the Machines.
Yeah, that's a terrible title.
I would never have watched it if my grandson had not said to watch it. And
so it's Pixar
very pleasantly.
Yeah, Pixar meets the James Cameron.
Yeah. It's an animated Terminator
with a family element.
With a family. But yeah, very hip. Lots of really cool references and stuff. In ways a little bit better than even the film we're going to cover today, as far as hip references go. So.
Okay. Well,
what about you?
I was going to say, I have to say I was kind of scrambling for a movie. I was in a weird mood. I didn't know what I wanted to watch. And I came across a film last night that snagged my attention. No, you're going to like this one.
Okay.
It was on Shudder. I had never heard of it before. It got pretty high ratings, though the budget is the exact opposite direction, very low. And it was a movie entitled, and it's a bad title too. They could have come up with a better title, called Here Comes Hell.
Okay.
This movie is a movie that we should have made. We run into these every once in a while.
Yeah.
It is the director, his name's McHenry. I can't remember his first name. It's his first. He wrote it, he directed it, and he's not done anything else. I'm really surprised because this is his bid really at a Sam Raimi type pitch. Basically, this movie is the Old Dark House from Universal meets The Evil Dead. And the thing that is remarkable about it is that it's a comedy, kind of. It's scary, but it's a comedy. But they also make it look like a movie that was made in the 1930s. And that blew me away. The production values, the black and white photography, the music, even the acting style in places is like watching a 1930s movie. It starts with a guy standing in front of a curtain saying, if you have an aversion to so-and-so, you better leave the theater now, and that kind of thing. And you're like, oh my God, this is so cool. And then of course, it's got the cliches. It's filmed in England. The one thing they had going for them big time was an excellent set. They have this decrepit mansion that is clearly unoccupied that they're using as a set. I mean, yeah, it's you wouldn't live there. There's
clearly unoccupied.
Yeah. But it's like, I mean, it looks like something out of Hill House or Downton Abbey. I mean, it's that magnificent, you know. And they have the cliches of, you know, the British brother and sister having the cocktail party that goes awry. There's a college friend that was from Texas, and he carries a knife and a gun, which is very Penny Dreadful. I mean, there's just a lot in this, and it's only 74 minutes long, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was captivated the entire time. Yeah. So I highly recommend it. It is on Shudder. You probably won't find it anywhere else because it's a little indie that, like I said, I would have never heard of had I not been scrolling through Shudder. So
curious. Okay, that's interesting. I will look it up then. I like stylistic filming, as you know, so it'll be interesting to look at that one.
And the effects
and
are
I can
kind
tell
of
from
cheap.
The pictures, it's all in black and white, and that's cool. Yeah.
And look at that car they're in. It's like this old car from like a Model T. I was like, where did they get this shit? And you wonder how much of it is special effects and how much isn't. You know, what they can do with green screen or whatever.
Right. Yeah. And how much they did with the new technology. You know, it's kind of like you know, you've read that like South Park is done with the same graphics engine that did Jurassic Park. So they could do realistic dinosaurs with that same, but instead they do that paper cutout animation, you know, to show that. I mean, so it's interesting to see, what CGI could do. Which, wow, now that's a good segue, because what can CGI do?
What can
probably
CGI
this
do,
entire
David?
movie we're
Why
about
don't you
to talk
tell us?
about. This entire movie we're about to cover. We are delving back in the science fiction world this week. And true. We are going to go to another one of my favorite director, as people have known. But we are covering a little 2018 work by Steven Spielberg called Ready Player One. Brief synopsis, and I'm just going to read this straight off IMDb because I think it's the most concise one I found. It is the year 2045. The real world is a harsh place. The only time Wade Watts truly feels alive is when he escapes to the OASIS, an immersive virtual universe where most of humanity spends their days. In the Oasis, you can go anywhere, do anything, be anyone. The only limits are your own imagination. The Oasis was created by a brilliant and eccentric scientist named James Halliday, who left his immense fortune and total control of the Oasis to the winner of the reality-bending treasure hunt. He and his friends, aka the High Five, are hurled into a fantastical universe of discovery and danger to save the Oasis. Yeah, that's it. Had you seen this movie before?
I have not. This was my first. I was a virgin.
You were a Ready Player One virgin.
I was.
Yes,
I had heard a little bit of the hoopla when the book came out a few years prior. I think it was 2011. But
Yep.
I'm not that much of a gamer. The last system I owned was a Nintendo 64. So I have not played a game since Mario 64, probably, or Banjo-Kazooie.
Banjo-Kazooie. Oh my God. Okay.
So
this was based, like you said, this was based on the novel. It was written by Ernest Cline. It came out in 2011. And you know, we had really good success. Spielberg got it almost immediately to begin adapting. Well, Warner's got it. I think Warner Brothers got it first.
yeah, there were other directors considered before him too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure we'll talk about. Well, so what's at first blush? What's your first reaction to virginally being assaulted by Ready Player One?
Well, I liked the movie. I kind of agree with what some of the critics say. I mean, it's a fast-paced movie. I like the plot of the movie. I think it lacks a little in character development. I would like to have known more about some of these people, but it's already 2 hours and 20 minutes long. So he would have had to sacrifice some of the fantastical elements, I guess, to do that, or at least add a little bit more dialogue. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Totally.
I'm really impressed that Lena Waithe is in it. I am watching a show right now. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's on Netflix called Master of None.
No.
It won. It's Anis Ansari, I think it's his name. He's a little Indian comedian. It's like his version of Seinfeld. It's hilarious. And Lena Waithe is on that show, and she won an Emmy, and that show has won Emmys. And I was like, who is this Lena Waithe woman? And then I watch the show, and I think she identifies as a woman. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure she's gay. But anyway, Lena Waithe is in this movie, and I was like, wow, she did that movie several years ago. No wonder she's on the radar, and I just have not seen her yet.
Well, the lead in this, Ty, whatever his name is, I don't know where I've seen him before, but I liked him in this. I thought he was
agreed.
Really good.
Kind of like the guy from Autopsy that we did not long ago. He's one of those guys that looks very familiar, that's very capable, that we just have not seen. Yeah.
And this falls into my very conflicted movie thing. I've seen this movie 4 times.
Wow.
Mostly because my son loves it. My son's a huge gamer and really likes it. And he's also a huge Back to the Future fan. He likes pop references. He loves hunting Easter eggs, which is what this movie is.
Right.
And that's kind of why I'm conflicted about it. I love Spielberg. I love the way he creates fantasy worlds. I like his photography, but this one seems like it's churned out by a Lucas marketing factory to me. This one seems like, and I went back to do some research on the book, and a lot of the references are from the book. I mean, literally, directly. He intended it to be a pop culture onslaught sort of thing in the way these, the way, and it's probably realistic in the way people would. They would identify with things. If they could create any fantasy they wanted and anybody could come play in it, of course you're going to have references to everything over the past, 50, 60 years.
Yeah, keys for this movie are off the chart, and I was going to get to that. I was going to say we probably need to have some guidelines when we get there, because I started cutting and pasting stuff out of IMDb, and I was like, this movie references everything. So they're not really keys; they're just appearances. Whereas overall movie arc has definite keys. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Or
I think there are large keys, and then we
influences.
just kind of classify references.
Okay.
You know, these aren't keys, it's just references, because I think the intent of this movie is pop references all the time.
Exactly.
You know, we
It's a
talked
key
a few
movie.
decades ago about, yeah,
Yeah. It's
we
just
talked
full
a few
of them.
decades ago about, you know, Stephen King and the way he would do, you know, occasionally he would throw in a pop reference. That became like a writing style for him.
Mhm.
You know, he didn't mind saying Coke, and he didn't mind saying my
Heinz
number
ketchup.
2 pencil. You know, yeah. So, but this movie does it literally about every nanosecond of it. There's some kind of pop reference or thing in the background or whatever. And so I'm conflicted because I guess you're right in that, to me, it doesn't have enough character depth. I don't really care about these characters, mostly because we're so thrust into not only their character, but then their in-game OASIS character, which is different than them. So there's and that layering we don't get in a movie like we could get in a book, where you could get a lot of that internal monologue and stuff. And we don't have that. Instead, we go for these very cliche archetype characters all the way through it. Even in real life, they're just rote characters. Oh, the kiss is going to be the big deal. Oh, this is the chase scene sequence. And it seems just very marketed to me. And
it seemed, yeah, like very cookie cutter almost.
Yeah.
Had you read the book?
I have not read the book.
Okay.
And I would actually like to. I did
It makes
read
me
sections of
curious.
it during I did read sections of it during research, and I did research the book itself as a solo, you know, title. The two, Spielberg hired another screenwriter to work with Ernest Cline on this, and then the two of them have now written the sequel together, a sequel book, which is the further adventures of Wade and Parzival.
You're talking Zach
Artemis.
Penn and Klein have worked together, not Spielberg.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. No, Zach Penn and Ernest Cline, who wrote the screenplay for this, have now gone on to write Ready Player 2, which is the sequel to the book.
I wonder if it's a different kind of video game. Because this one was very Legend of Zelda, you know, or whatever, with the keys and the wizard and stuff.
Right. It is. Actually, I'll look it up real quick, because they did mention that the synopsis was something about Wade finding
Sonic the
finding
Hedgehog.
something in the OASIS,
No.
you know, kind of thing. So yeah.
Well, I mean, it's easy to just have more Easter eggs with a different theme. I mean, I could see them coming up with a whole other plot. You know, this is what could happen if you find these or whatever. I'm with you on the characters. I mean, I think you get enough of Parzival or Wade character, and I think you get enough of the bad guy, Sorrento's character. But everyone else is kind of two-dimensional to me, including Artemis.
Yeah, and I guess one of my negatives too in my thoughts are, and it's a key reference too, is we only get a lot of Wade because we have a lot of narration in this movie. It is, to me, it's Dune. It has a lot of internal Paul Atreides dialogue, you know, monologues. I mean, from the very beginning, it's all monologue, exposition.
And a lot of moving camera. I mean, the camera moves constantly in this movie. And I was like, why don't you stay in the real world and let me see a little bit more of it? I don't just want to glide through it and go inside. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, agreed. It would have been interesting too if he had thought of another, and I, not knowing what it would be, but some other cinematic contrivance that would help. Like the key for me is Westworld. Westworld, especially in season 2 and season 3, started doing this thing where when they were in a simulation, everything went to this stretched out 16:9 kind of look, almost like an intense letterbox. And then when you would be back in the real world, everything would jump to full screen again in your 16:9 television. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So when you were in, and they didn't announce it. They didn't say anything about it. It wasn't like somebody put on the goggles like in this game and suddenly you could go into it. It was just, you certainly started looking back at scenes and going, oh my God, that whole scene was a simulation because look at the framing.
Mm-hmm.
And it could have been cool if he had done that. When we're in world, it feels different than outworld, not just because of the fantasy elements and the fact that I can see a freaking DeLorean or whatever, but is there something you could do framing wise or color wise?
Color wise is what I was thinking. Yeah. Which is what the Matrix did. Yeah.
Yeah. If he had washed out, Matrix is a good key too. Maybe if he had washed out the real world and made it more bland, so more people wanted to get in the Oasis. It's color and fun and action and all that.
Right. And that's and when you I was reading a synopsis before we started today, and they mentioned that the reason people want to go to the Oasis is because the world is so bleak. And you just said it. Make it bleaker. Don't just make it weird. Make it, it looks like a junkyard. It looked like a tall junkyard to me.
Yeah. And one of the big things that comes out of this, I was going, nobody at all mentions addiction in this movie. Mentions I mean, we know that from, Star Trek Next Generation, that you can get addicted to a holodeck. Nobody mentions the fact that half the world spends their time in this freaking game.
Well, they do it at the very end when they say that he kept the Oasis closed 2 days because people need to enjoy the real world or whatever. Yeah.
Got to enjoy the real world.
But I mean, that's true. I mean, there's video game addiction too.
Mm-hmm.
I see Dennis on his tablet every night on TV playing, I don't know, Candy Crush or something.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it is human nature. We like that serotonin rush. So if we could get it, if we could put on goggles and gloves and get into a game like this, yeah, sure. I'm sure people would.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't go to work. And now what do you do for a living? Sort of thing. But okay, sorry.
All right, so we've talked about things that we don't like about the movie. So we should probably proceed to things that we do like, wouldn't you say? Or any history or stuff that you have?
Yeah. Well, I definitely like the character, the actors. I like the cast of this movie. Even T.J. Miller, who I usually don't like, but I really like. I've liked him in 2 things. I like him in Red Funny Supervillain.
Oh, Superbad.
No.
Isn't he the guy from Superbad?
He is, but I didn't like him in that. I liked him in Deadpool. I like him in both the Deadpool movies, and I like him in this. He's got some of the best lines, plus the fact that he gets to do the charm of making, which is great. Which I like. But Ben Mendelsohn can just make his entire career being the villain.
He's awesome.
He's really good at it.
And he looks so different. I was like, when was The Outsider? Because he looks so much younger in this. I was like, did they enhance him somehow in this?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't, but I thought the same thing. I thought in The Outsider, he's the good guy, but he's just got such a great voice and such a great presence in this.
Yeah.
That I thought he did a really good job.
Spielberg has always had a knack for casting. I don't know if it's him or whoever he's hired to do it, but he's good at finding people that are relatively off the grid and putting them in big roles. And Mendelsohn and that Ty Sheridan guy. I thought Olivia Cooke was good too. She just didn't have as much. Yeah.
I liked her. I liked both her real character, which I can't remember her name right now, but I liked Artemis, her avatar too. I thought both
Artemis and Samantha. Yeah.
And I thought I've always liked Mark. I think his name is Rylance.
Yes, it
he's the guy
is.
that plays Halliday. I've always liked him and everything I've seen him in. He always plays that kind of eccentric, in the back sort of character.
What have you seen him in? Because I don't know him.
I'm trying to remember.
He reminds me of that. He looks like one of the kids in the hall. I can't think of the kids' name. He does, or at least he did in this film. And I was like, where have I seen him before? But I kept seeing that kid in the hall. That's funny.
Let me see. Let me look him up.
Well, while you're looking,
Simon
I
Pegg.
will say, since we're in casting, there were other people up for that role besides Mark Rylance. One of them was Michael Keaton, which I guess he may have been
worked.
Yeah, I could see it working, but he could have been potentially too old. It looks like they went with a younger looking guy that they aged via makeup. But also Tom Hanks and Tom Cruise were considered, which, I mean, you're just basically going through the roster of Steven Spielberg leads, you know, when you go in that direction. So that could be just hearsay. I don't know.
Well, then Mark Rylance, I'm looking him up. Yes, and I'll tell you these. So he's worked with Spielberg before on 2 other films. He did Bridge of Spies. He's the spy that is wanting to defect in Bridge of Spies. If you've never seen that movie, he's excellent in it. It's great.
Okay.
He was the giant in BFG.
See, I don't know any of these movies.
That's another Spielberg, mostly a kid's movie. And most recently, he plays William Kunstler in Trial of the Chicago 7, the Netflix movie that was so good. It's written by Aaron Sorkin. I highly recommend it. It's really, really, really
Is it
good.
Netflix or is it HBO?
I watched it, so it's not HBO. Because I don't have HBO right now.
Okay. Because I haven't seen that
Netflix
yet.
Or
you know,
something.
I should watch that with Dennis. He would like that.
Yes, he would. You should watch it. But
well, other than that, he looks like Kevin McDonald from The Kids in the Hall.
Okay.
That's who he reminds me of anyway. That is an old school reference. And they're coming back too, I think, to HBO. Now we mention it. We would be remiss not to talk about Lena Waithe. I love her. I wish she would have had a little bit bigger part in this. I thought it was cool that, you know, he thinks that his best friend in the virtual world of OASIS is a guy when it's actually a girl. Mm-hmm. And I checked. She does go by the pronoun she. But she is gay, and she won an Emmy for writing a coming out episode of that show I was telling you about, writing and directing, I believe, called The Master of None. So, or Emmy, yeah, I think she won an Emmy for it. Anyway, like her.
Okay, I'll have to look that one up. Yeah,
it's also got Simon Pegg in it, another favorite.
Who plays the curator, which is a kind of a rote, more exposition character. But he's the curator. I got. Well, yeah. I liked that. Because he plays. Simon. I'm trying to remember. Oh,
he's
Simon Pegg is his
partner. Mm-hmm.
And the curator. Yes. Okay, good. Yeah, I got that.
And the curator's a great part. Every time I saw him, I thought it was Michael Caine. Yeah. So it makes sense that it was him. I didn't put everybody. This movie has a shit ton of people in it, but I think I've hit the majors other than all those others. I actually have some in here. Oh, I have Sho, who was Philip Zaho, and Dato, who was Winmore Yaski. And wasn't Sho the little kid? That was kind of funny. That was a good bit.
Yes. Yeah. Again, I like the way they did that with, when they started peeling away the avatars and you were seeing that, naturally, I'm going to pick an avatar that's not me, sort of thing. So that worked. I thought, and that's a good gamer reference as well. Of choose your gender, choose what you want, be who you want to be in this world.
And the fact that like a 13-year-old can beat an adult at it too. I love that.
Yeah. but stuff like that was really seems very, again, like the characters, it seems very superficial to me. They didn't touch on any of the big, to me, topics or drama that could come from that.
Mhm.
You know, that can come from, oh, I've always known you as this, and now you're this little kid, sort of thing.
Mhm. Well, no, I totally
And
agree. It's like, and that's why I was curious if you'd read the book. There's so much sensational, fantastical stuff going on. It's like we needed room for character development, and I'm not really sure how you would do that and keep the fantastical element of the Oasis. You would think Spielberg would be able to do that. You know what? Here's a good example. We mentioned The Matrix. You don't lose it in The Matrix. The Matrix is the
no,
same length. It's almost, I think it's 4 minutes shorter than this movie. And it has better character development than this movie.
yes, yes, I agree with you. It also
So,
has deeper values too. It brings into question bigger themes and stuff like this. This one doesn't. This is a marketing movie.
oh,
This
you're
is
right. You're
oh,
right. I mean, well, yeah, if it does bring in bigger themes, they're very glossed over for sure.
yeah. To me, this movie is a way to get Alan Silvestri to, you know, to do a score again. It's a good way to show the Back to the Future car. Oh my God,
Mhm.
look over there. That's King Kong.
Freddy
You know, it's
Krueger,
all of
Chucky.
Jason. I
Yeah.
mean, all of them are in it.
Yeah.
But there's no substance underneath it all. I mean, we'll each race to say it, but the big key of this movie is Willy Wonka. This
Right.
is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
It is.
You know, an eccentric who has a game you have to play in order to win his inheritance. Okay,
Yeah. The
it's
golden
Willy
ticket.
Wonka, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, but even that had more. We knew a little bit more about. I mean, and again, you had Charlie
There were
Bucket and
4
his
people
poor
sleeping in the
family.
same bed.
Yeah, and his poor family. But
Or
then he
2
has to
people.
make
Yeah,
the
I think I was
commitment at
4.
the end. Blah 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 blah. You know, it just. I think I expected more depth, and maybe Spielberg just needed to get a fantasy for a change because he's been doing like Bridge of Spies and Schindler's and all the heavy ones that he had been doing. Maybe he just needed something lighter to do. I don't know.
He's done a bunch of movies I haven't seen because I hear you say them and I'm like, why don't I know that?
You need to get in there amongst it.
I'm too busy looking for horror gems.
Well,
Speaking of
yeah.
which, before we leave casting, there is one last thing I wanted to mention. Did you recognize Mrs. Gilmore? And don't be surprised if you didn't, because you only see her twice. This is what I'm saying about not seeing enough of these people. She's either his landlord or neighbor, but he speaks to her at the very beginning of the movie, and she makes a really quick appearance later in the movie. Not in the Oasis.
I don't remember her. No, I don't remember her.
Well, she's Claire Higgins from Hellraiser. It's Julie.
Oh, from Hellraiser.
Yeah.
Oh.
And you don't even
That's
recognize
cool.
her because you barely see her.
Does she have a hammer? She doesn't have a hammer. See?
No,
that's why
she's older, a little heavier, and he says hey to her, and I don't know if she's his landlord or just his next door neighbor. She lives like on the bottom.
Wow.
I think. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, if you're going to do that kind of reference, then you need it to be more. Come on, why not?
Well, I mean, it is Claire Higgins, so
yeah, that's cool.
I have a few awards that this movie did not win, but was nominated for. It was nominated for, obviously, visual special effects for the 2019 Academy Awards. It was a nominee for the same in the BAFTA Awards. And it did actually win a Saturn Award for Best Science Fiction Film, Best Director. No, excuse me, Best Science Fiction Film. It was a nominee for Best Director, Best Music, and Best Effects. And that Saturn Award is the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films. So yeah, it didn't win too many. So I guess they kind of agree with us that this movie was lacking a bit.
What about scenes? Did you have any favorite scenes? Hint, hint. Did you have any favorite sections of the movie, Tim? Maybe
Yeah, I know what you're saying. You're talking about the entire second key, which is
yes.
And I guess that this could literally be a key, not just a reference, and that's The Shining. They determine that what's the guy's name? Halliday did not fulfill his endearment to Morrow's wife, who he dated her before they got married. And apparently their date where he could have done this was when they went to see The Shining in, I guess, 1980.
Yeah.
And so the kids have to go and travel into the movie version of The Shining, which is kind of fascinating. I was wondering what kind of rights are involved to do something like that. Was this a Warner Brothers film?
I did actually do some research on that, and
okay,
yes, that is why. And they had to actually do a great deal of work to make that sequence work, down to getting the actual blueprints from Kubrick's estate to rebuild the hotel hallways and rebuild certain rooms and everything else. It was very interesting if you research all the amount of work they had to do to get the licensing to even use the theme.
I thought it was all CGI.
No, they actually built sets for that of the hotel and of the kitchen, and recreated it, inch by inch from archive footage and from the actual blueprints. It's very interesting to see all the work that went into it, and then complement with CGI, and complement it with actual excerpts from the movie. So there are a couple of shots from the actual Shining.
Right, like they inserted his hand hiding the nudity of the woman getting out of the bathtub, but that was obviously the same actress.
Right. And the girls, the twins,
right.
Danny, come play with us. I do like Lena Waithe in that scene. I like H going, I've never seen The Shining. Is it scary? And then it cuts to her screaming and running. I mean, and H is this big, huge Hulk. I love that.
Yeah. But yeah, I was curious about it.
I was just curious. Yeah.
I mean, as far as I'm assuming, I think The Shining was a Warner Brothers film, or was it 20th Century Fox? I can't remember.
No, it was Warner.
It was Warner. And you had that, you had Kubrick, you had King, I guess, to an extent, who, I mean, there's a lot of people tied to that property. How do you, for instance, I will say this, and I don't know, I do know this difference from the book and from the movie. The Iron Giant was not used in the book as the hero at the end. The hero was one of my childhood favorites, Ultraman, but they could not get the rights from Japan to use Ultraman, and they had to change it to the Iron Giant. Yeah. So something happened that they got the rights to The Shining, but they couldn't get the rights to Ultraman.
Well, there are also a lot more references in the book to Spielberg and his movies, and he took a lot of that out and only left a few in, like Jurassic Park and a couple of others.
Oh, that's true. I did read that because he didn't want it to seem too tongue-in-cheek, I guess.
Yeah, too much like he's making, tooting his own horn.
Yeah, no sharks.
Yeah, no sharks.
No spaceships. No aliens.
Right.
There is a T-Rex at one point, and there's something else. I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, and the producers, I read a little thing. I'm not sure if this is true or not, but I did read that the producers wanted the mothership from Close Encounters, and Spielberg said no. But it makes, I mean, no. The computer says no. So, any other I mean,
Any other
it's-
scenes? I mean, I love I love the wizard transformations when he gets the keys. I think that's so cool. It reminds you of being in a video game and going, yes, finally, you know.
Yeah, when you beat the boss.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you get and he extends his hand and the keys in it. I love that. I love those. The whole orb of whatever at the end when Iron Giant and everybody's attacking it. I mean, it's epic, but it's a lot of CGI.
Yeah. It's a lot of unemotional CGI. We don't really care. Not really.
No. Yeah, it's kind of like World War Z. It's a lot of zombies.
Yeah. And they think a semi key I have is you think Spielberg would have learned from Return of the Jedi, where certain space battles in that are so huge and epic with so many ships that we don't care. We don't even know where to focus in the shot.
Yeah, you can't. There's too much going on.
There's so many times in this movie where that's happening in the race at the beginning and also near the end. I mean, but there's so much stuff happening. You're going, what's my focus?
Right.
Sort of thing.
No, I totally agree.
I also have huge issues with just the overall plot, the game itself. This Halliday game that he put together. I'm going, there's so many loopholes. If you look online and do the everything wrong with, the guy that does that on YouTube, he does the everything wrong with and takes a movie and then he just starts counting down all the mistakes they make in the movie. And it's, sometimes it takes him 15 or 20 minutes. The one for this one is really funny because he keeps making fun of the actual quest, going, seriously? Nobody looked at the freaking Shining? It's only his favorite damn movie, and all these Gunters for decades have been looking for this, and nobody saw that? Really? Nobody thought that the kiss would be the thing? Come on. He goes, all of the clues and all of the resolutions are so freaking obvious that, there's no way that this was not figured out decades earlier, sort of thing. And then other stuff that just makes no sense. If we know we have to go backwards, then why are we going forward in the first place? Sort of thing. It's just, it's very interesting if you watch that to see all the loopholes that are in it from the plotting standpoint. Did you get emotional resonance at the end of this? Did you go, yay,
No.
Percival won? Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah.
I got a little bit of resonance from the whole turn off your TVs for 2 days or whatever, that message. But I mean, that wasn't emotional. That was just, a good message.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't feel, I don't know. These characters are very two-dimensional. They're not easy to relate to at all.
Yep.
I got distracted a while ago because I started looking through all these things I cut and pasted. And I mean, it's just basically, it's basically a bunch of Steven Spielberg in jokes, like, Perseus Shield from Clash of the Titans, Boba Fett sitting at a bar, RoboCop. I mean, all Doctor Who, TARDIS, whatever. I mean, there's just a million things, so many that very much like you said, the action is so fast you can't keep track of it. I couldn't keep track of these things. I didn't see all these things at all. Did you?
No. Well, yeah. Well, like I said, I've seen it 4 times. So I have, a chance to see.
I mean, I saw Freddy Krueger jumping up really quick, and I do remember seeing Jason, and you do get a little time with Chucky, but that.
Yep. But like
those are the 3
the Zemeckis cube, the holy hand grenade,
love
Superman, Batman, the Batmobile.
You had the Batmobile, but the holy hand grenade was a good reference because it was dwelled on a little bit longer. It was an item you could buy to use as a weapon.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of spaceships when they do the space thing. I mean, the Serenity is there, Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, all of that. The one that I didn't know until I did some research was Artemis's rifle is the pulse rifle from Aliens. That's the one that Sigourney Weaver uses.
I saw that. I mean, I had read it before I watched it, so I was looking for it.
Oh, okay.
And I noticed that it was kind of square and bulky like those. So yeah, I did see
and
that.
I literally jumped up and down in the theater when I watched this the first time when he did the charm of making from Excalibur as the charm. I thought that was great. I went, yes, that's awesome.
It says that the is that the spell?
Yeah, Anal Nathrak Uth Vas Beithud.
Yeah, because I've got that in my notes, and I was like, is it the orb that's from Excalibur or the spell? And it must have been the spell.
The spell. Yeah.
Bigfoot, DeLorean, Christine is apparently in there. Big Trouble in Little China, the truck.
Smokey and the Bandit, the Trans Am is in there in the race.
I mean, it's overload. It's pop culture overload. It's what it is.
It is, but I guess we're older. I'm assuming maybe younger gamers and people. Because I'll watch Rocky play games and I don't understand how he can react as fast as he reacts. In these huge landscapes, and he's running one direction, looking another, shooting back over his shoulder, and how he sees where to go and do and run. And I'll watch some of these videos and go, I don't see how this guy even knows where he's going in the chase.
But Steven Spielberg is older than us. So a lot of these pop culture references are references to stuff we grew up with or he grew up with. So they should be resonant with us. And in some ways they are, but they're just such flash in the pans that I'm not so sure. It's almost too many. It's almost like if you'd used less and more significant ones, it might have been more powerful.
Well, I have like a few big, genuine, in my opinion, keys that aren't just references. One we talked about was Willy Wonka, of course. Mm-hmm. I think that's the entire plot of this.
Totally.
The other one is this is very Goonies-like. This fantasy adventure that only one character, and that's a reference back to Spielberg again.
It is,
but that only he's got to get his Fab Five together in order to complete the quest. We've all got to stay in this together, guys. Sort of Goonies approach. There's lots of medieval and Greek kind of stuff, especially in the avatars. So you've got Percival, you've got Artemis. So you've got all these references to Arthurian legend, to Greek legend, all of that.
Clash of the Titans. Yeah.
Yes. I'd mentioned Dune already because of the overabundance of internal monologue narration, I think. And then the last one I've got is there's a lot of, I think there's a definite feel that Halliday and Morrow are like Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. They both did it together, but then they kind of parted ways, and they each have their own thing. It's a very Apple creation sort of mythology there too. But those are my big ones that I think.
And what's his face? Sorrento was like the underappreciated intern or whatever.
Yeah, he's Bill Gates.
I guess. I only have one. I mean, my biggest, I had three big keys from this movie. And I mean like arch keys as far as like thematic, I guess. And two of them we've already mentioned. One is Willy Wonka. The other is The Matrix. I mean, I just saw The Matrix. It's like, it's a terrible world. Go live here. Terrible world. Go live here. But another one that I think he didn't hit hard enough on that could have possibly made this movie better is The Wizard of Oz, because there is no place like home. And he barely hit on that at the end, and he didn't hit it hard enough. So, but I would say, because I think The Wizard of Oz is a huge key with this movie. And that's really all I have, unless you want to list pop culture references.
No, we could go on for hours.
Hours,
it would
days.
Be really cool.
Yeah,
would be really cool to kind of think of this, and then just go to the parallels of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or Willy Wonka. I mean, down to poor family, down to the
It's so funny.
You violated the rules, so you're kicked out, sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. The minute I started it, I got that reference almost 5 minutes in. I was like, oh, this is Willy Wonka. It's pretty fast and pretty apparent. Yeah.
And Fine, the author has said that was a huge influence on his writing the book, which makes sense, obviously.
And you know what? We may have related to that character a little bit more had we seen more of those weird people he lived with, including the guy that was abusive to his sister, or was it his stepmom or mom? I can't remember.
His stepmom, I think. Yeah.
And that Mrs. Gilbert that was played by Julia from Hellraiser, and whoever lived in that complex, but we didn't see enough of that.
No, we don't see enough of the backstories. We don't see enough.
We just see that he lives in a trashy place.
I mean, Sorrento's a rote villain. He's just boom. I'm the head of the corporation. Ooh, I must be bad. Sort of thing. But I mean, again, I'm not saying to all of you guys out there watching and listening, don't go watch this movie. I think it is worth a watch. It is fantastical in several ways, but I think it misses the mark as far as depth of storytelling and character development, other than Wade himself, I think.
It's a popcorn movie. It's definitely worth seeing and enjoying, but it's not deep at all, really. Yeah.
And you could spend days, to Tim's point, you could spend days looking at all the pop culture references.
I would spend days in the Overlook Hotel.
Yeah, you probably would. Come play with us.
Yeah, what was with that giant axe? That was weird.
Yeah, well, but that's a very anime and gamer thing, of where everything is hugely oversized. If you play Silent Hill, the villain in that carries this huge blade, and it's literally like 3 feet across and like 6 feet long, and he drags it and he fights with it. So everything is these oversized blades, sort of, in fantasy fiction. So there we go. Ready Player One by Steven Spielberg. Not the best, but worth a fun. We want to thank you guys for joining us, listening to us, watching us on YouTube. If you liked it, click on that thing and give us ring the bell. What do? You click on the subscribe.
You want to subscribe on YouTube. You want to subscribe and ring that bell. And actually,
yes, you do.
Now that I think about it, if you have any comments or questions, put them in those YouTube comments and questions, because we can answer them there as well.
We can answer them right there for you, or email us. You can email us at Johnny Has the Keys. You can also listen to us if you're watching us on YouTube. You can listen to all of our over 100 episodes of our podcast.
What is this?
And tell everybody else to come and play with us. We also urge everybody, if you want to become a patron and join our Patreon, that would be great. What are you laughing about? Right in the middle of something.
Come play with us. Come play with us, Daddy.
Perfect. Tim, thank you for doing this.
I enjoyed it. We will. We've got one more episode before Thanksgiving. We'll see you guys. It's going to be a special one, so you want to tune into this one.
Yes, please. Next week. Talk to you again.
See you. Bye.
Can't start the car. Johnny has the